victory will be ours once more.
Meanwhile, Harold sees the Norman army in the distance.
What Harold did next is detailed in a unique document that takes us to the very heart of events that autumn day, nearly 1,000 years ago. Hidden in the National Library in Brussels is an ancient book containing an epic poem. The Carmen, or Song of the Battle of Hastings, is our earliest surviving account of 1066. It gives us a blow-by-blow description of this pivotal moment in history. This is the Battle of Hastings laid bare, from the first move to the last death.
It tells us a little about the way Harold deployed his forces. So you have a line here that says there was a hill nearby that they seized, and we told the English, Anglis ut mos es, as was their wont, densatim progredientis. So they advance to occupy the hill in their famous dense formation, the shield wall. So Harold, it's telling us, begins the battle by seizing the high ground.
"950 years on, and one of the most seismic moments in British history has become the stuff of tourism. This is the town of Battle, 8 miles from Hastings. And it stands right next to the historic site itself. On the early morning of the 14th of October 1066, the English and the Normans faced each other on this battlefield. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicles said that the battle took place near the hoary apple tree. Okay, so we are, well, halfway, third of the way up this big, gentle, but quite long slope. Is this no man's land now?
Effectively, at the beginning of the battle, I suppose we are. So what you have to imagine is behind me, forget about all the ruined buildings you can see behind me, that's the later abbey. Right at the top of the slope, beyond what you can see of the ruined buildings, is where Harold has placed his standard.
I'm feeling pretty good about where we are. We've got the better position, we're in a good, tight formation. All we need to do is hold this position for the rest of the day.
Behind you, the bottom of the valley, is where you're going to find Duke William's army. And they're at an immediate disadvantage, because we imagine that the bottom of the valley is rather marshy, very damp. They're going to come through that damp land and then start climbing the hill to take Harold's position.
It's true that we absolutely do have the worst position. We're going to have to take the battle to you, we're going to have to go uphill, and that's always a challenging thing to do.
Yeah, knackering and quite intimidating. That's the English army up there, and they're not going to be moved easily.
That's the English army up there, shouting at you, shouting, oots, oots, oots. You've got the Norman army, apparently singing the Song of Roland as they approach. You've got the sound of trumpets at the start of the battle. You've got the noise, the fanfare, the adrenaline, and the fear as the Norman advance comes onto the Saxon.
We do have certain advantages. We, for instance, have 3 lines of battle. Here in the front, we have our archers, and then behind them, we have a line of infantry, and then behind them, our strike force, our cavalry. And looking around, I can see that you have absolutely no cavalry on the field at all, and that leads me to conclude that you are going to be fighting in the old-fashioned, plodding English way that you always do, and that makes me feel good about our prospects.
Before the sun sets, you will have honor, fame, and riches. Do not fear. We will not be slaughtered or captured and mocked by our enemy. Now is the time to dare, and then to rejoice in a triumph that will echo down the centuries with our names and our deeds!
The stage was set for a day that would shape the future of Britain and Europe. The unfolding dramas of 1066, ever since the death of the old, childless King Edward the Confessor, had come to this. two great armies and a field.